Welcome back to a Celtic State of Mind. I'm Paul John Dykes, and on this Tuesday afternoon, we join Lawrence Conley live from the Skylark Bar. It's a bar that all the Acsom listeners and viewers want to visit at some point. Lawrence, can you make that happen? Is it big enough? Are you going to do a live show from the Skylark?
I think we'll definitely do a live show. I mean, for the Glasgow Derby, I think we'd have about 20 in watching.
Right. And is your missus all right with that?
Yeah, I mean, Lee McGrandles has promised to do an official opening for me to play.
Oh, nice.
So, yeah. So hold Liam to that. You know, need to get it arranged.
As long as it doesn't bring Rod Stewart with him, you'll be fine.
Mate, he's a busy man. 1 week he's over at New York doing the Charity Foundation for Celtic. And I think the week after that, he was in the Finney's bar in the Ratlock. You know,
he gets about. He gets about. I'm going to jump right into the comment section. Where are we this week in terms of Celtic? We've just made our way through to the Scottish Cup final on that historic date, the 25th of May, where we will be facing Rangers for the first time in a Scottish Cup final. Really looking forward to that. We'll be talking a wee bit about the performance. Any concerns you might have, I'm pretty sure they'll come through in the comment section. And obviously, a wee look ahead to this weekend's game. I'm going to kick off by saying that the officials have been announced. No real surprises that Beaton and Dallas will be refereeing and VARing the game, Lawrence. Yeah. What do you make of that? What do you make of that? Is that because they're two of the best that we've got? Or is it because they've been handpicked for Celtic games? I'm just going to put it out there. What do you think?
Well, it depends who's judging what the best is. Certainly the head of referees judges them to be the best. But best at what? I'm not too sure. But, and they've definitely been handpicked for this game, you know, because he's got a choice of picking whoever he wants. So there's no argument that they're handpicked. And I guess it's how you're measuring what the best is. What's Andrew Dallas famous for? 4 penalties in one game to was it the old Rangers or the current Rangers? I can't remember, mate. It doesn't seem, the referees don't seem to have a distinction.
No,
between either of
they
them.
don't.
So, and John Beaton, you know, it's just ridiculous that he's still a ref. You know, with unconscious bias that he's shown. We'll be kind and say it's unconscious bias.
What I would say on that, first of all, is that an inverted cross on your top, or is it a saltire? I'm not quite sure. It's the angle you're saying. All right, I'm glad.
Yeah, I was out golfing this morning.
I just wanted to clear that up in case anybody thought you were a Satanist. But with regards to the selection process, I do know that obviously historically in Scottish football, if a club had an issue with the performance of a specific official, often what the SFA would do, obviously to protect the official, I would say, Lawrence, is they would remove them from refereeing and officiating games involving that football club. So I'm quite surprised that that's not happened with John Beaton, because he was at the centre of the furore at Tynecastle. Does it surprise you?
Well, no, because I kind of only seen that happening for one club. It's
right.
Or two clubs, sorry. If Rangers complained or if the Rangers complained, that would happen. They wouldn't get that ref again. No way that happening for any other club. I'm not trying to say they're refereed to different standards, and you know, even the rules are applied to different standards, but it's the only club I can recall it happening for. So
yeah, strange that.
Strange that. I think it would be a bit weird, because that means you could almost pick your refs just by complaining about a ref and ensuring you didn't get them. So if you're not getting them, conversely, you're getting ones you want. You know, it goes back, I think, when they'll come up with the division to get special refs for their games. Could be refereed by lower league referees. We've got to drop in guys like Beaton, etc., to do that uninterrupted march. Obviously, bar, you know, it wasn't uninterrupted.
Are you talking about the playoff that Motherwell won, and it all turned a wee bit nasty, and there was hooks flying and all that kind of stuff? I do remember it. But Lawrence,
I was in a bar in Rutherglen. Never seen so many Motherwell fans in.
What bar were you in?
The Vogue.
Listen, mate, I don't know pubs, right? I don't know if that's a Celtic shop or whatever it is. I don't know. But what I would suggest is there was probably no serving referees in there having a pint. However, we'll move on from the refereeing this Sunday rather, and we'll go back to the game at the weekend there. And I'm seeing a kind of concerted effort, I would suggest, to say that Celtic got off with a couple of decisions. But when you actually look at them, I thought the officials had an absolute cracking game. They got them right, Lawrence.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's a foul on Johnston, so there's no decision to be made. Perhaps I should say, as we know, if it's a foul, there's no decision to be made on a penalty after it. So, bang on that. I think a lot of tackles go on Celtic players. You know, we certainly couldn't have been accused of being card happy. But all in all, you know, fairly decent game from them. But Brendan's record remains in the Scottish Cup.
Astonishing record, isn't it?
Yeah. Absolutely remarkable.
It's an incredible record at Hampden Park. It's an incredible record in this particular competition. And, you know, we're talking about the leaders that Celtic have within that dressing room and on the training park, who I think instill a winning mentality in a wider group that have quite a lot, I would suggest, new players in the group. And I've spoken about this all the way through the season and how damaging that can be to the mentality of a dressing room. If you bring in a third, if you say, you know, a third of a new squad into a dressing room, it can actually change the mentality. And I think that what we require and what we've seen over the last few weeks are those leaders to step up. Joe Hart was one such leader at the weekend, Lawrence. He obviously could have been the villain, but he pulled it out the fire with his save. And by the way, that was probably the third one that could have resulted in a save. He got very close to two others that went just under his body. And then he spent the evening the following night at Celtic Park in amongst Celtic fans, answering questions. And from, obviously, Acsom's perspective, we were represented, but anyone who was there, they are speaking about a man who basically has fallen in love with this football club. He gets it. He means it. He was getting emotional when answering questions, Lawrence. I think this season, more so than his other two seasons, he's been a bit of a titan for Celtic when we actually needed him to step up and be that leader.
Well, who was the keeper before him, mate? And then all of a sudden we get a Golden Gloves winner. You know, he's done it all, really. And I honestly don't get the criticism he's coming from some parts of the sport. It's like, who's out there that's better than him, who we could realistically get? And the guy taking a huge pay cut to come. You know, he's on, what, 15 grand a week? I think he was, you know, dropping from about 80. I think, you know, absolutely delivered for us. And that's one of the main worries about, I suppose, the summer transfer window. Yeah. Celtic's probably going to spend, going by a track record, maybe tops 25 million. How much are you going to have to spend on a keeper of quality that's going to approach Joe Hart? Because I doubt we'll get somebody with the same quality, but you need somebody approaching his quality. How much is that going to take out your budget? You know, I think you're looking 6-7 million, mate, to get something there. And then you've got Ida and Bernardo there. Rumoured to be looking for 6 million for both. That take you to an 18 million spend just on those three players. Right. So I wouldn't be making decisions on like Ida, Bernardo, or anyone else until we've got our keeper.
Okay, you've brought that up. It's something we touched on briefly yesterday. Kevin Graham and I spoke about going into the pre-season, Lawrence, right? But the issue with what you've said there, I don't disagree with the pricing of the players that you're talking about. Replacing Joe Hart will cost this. Bringing in Bernardo or a replacement for Bernardo will cost this, and it's the same for Ida. I totally agree with that. I think the issue with what you said, and it's not your issue, it's the club's issue, is setting the stall at 25 million, because that's not going to be enough this pre-season. So yesterday, what I was talking about is, you know, something of a rebuild. And unfortunately, the two transfer windows beforehand could have been part of this rebuild, but they've not, because when you look at the summer transfers, you're really clutching at the amount of talent that have come through that you could say, right, they're starters. You know, by the end of this season, who from the 9 players that came in are actual starters? Not even Bernardo. You know, in your strongest 11, Bernardo's not even a starter.
Listen, I was surprised that Scales come back in for the Rocky. You know, I thought Rocky did done enough to keep his place. So I think he's probably been the best out of the summer. But it's a level you're buying at. You know, you're buying what, Kwon for $1 million. Is he going to replace Awata or McGregor?
You know, if you bring him in though, Lawrence, and this is obviously something you know, unless it's someone exceptional, I don't want to see that type of signing in the summer. I don't want to see a signing that you think you can come in and develop over 18 months, right? Odin Holm, 20-year-old, right? So as a guy with potential, I don't want to see it this summer though, Lawrence.
No, it's you know, we're trying to slim down the squad. It's still a fairly big squad.
Yeah.
Potential needs to play. They need to develop. Holmes had no near enough minutes. Collins went out on loan. Law was out on loan. You've got Danny Kelly starting to make his way through in midfield. You're going, right, how many potential do you need in midfield? And we've got Summers out on loan as well. He's doing okay at Dunfermline. So potentially get five players of that already in the squad.
I don't mind having half a dozen to 8 young players that have come through our ranks, Lawrence, out plying their trade somewhere else. We've seen where it's worked. It's worked with the likes of, well, the famous one is obviously Callum McGregor. It's also worked with players that we brought to the club, like Ryan Christie, like Chris Ayer, and obviously Liam Scales is another example of that. I don't mind the young guys who are maybe the star players in the B team. They're not going to progress any further in the 5th tier of Scottish football. Get them out. And I think that's why we've got the partnership with Admira Wacker, so we can send a few boys over to Austria. The more of that, the merrier for me. What I do have an issue with is bringing in a clutch of guys that are not going to contribute directly to the first team. Now, even like Bernardo, and by the way, there's a whole discussion around whether or not he is the guy that we bring in the summer, or we put him back to Benfica and bring someone else in. Even someone like that isn't guaranteed a starting place in the Celtic side. Now, if and when Matt O'Reilly departs, he's going to have a better shout at a starting jersey, Lawrence. But the way that I kind of painted it yesterday was that we need 8 players in the summer. Kev said we won't do it. My argument to that is why not? We do it most summers. We bring in loads of players every summer. We brought in 9 in the summer just past. So we can certainly do it. The big question for me, and it's going back to your original point, is this £25 million figure. How do we settle on this figure as a football club? And why do we settle on a figure that's so small? Because you're not going to get the job done with that amount of money, Lawrence.
I feel you get 4 first-team starts for that. If all 4 worked out. Yeah, listen, I think if we get 1 and 2, 1 and 3 working out, that come in and do well immediately, we've done really well. I don't know what success rate is. I haven't looked it up, but if it was 1 and 2, I'd be surprised. 1 and 3, I'd probably be happy with the kind of level of players in the competition we've got. So,
is that good enough? Is that good enough? Would you be happy with that from a recruitment team? If you're spending, let's say, you went out and bought 3 players, they were all £5 million, right? And 2 of them were a flop, and 1 of them worked. Would you be happy with that?
What's the industry norm? How many transfers are guaranteed to work out? You need to look at what industry norm is.
No transfers guaranteed to work out.
Right. So what percentage is normal for the industry? You need to look at it, and if it's 1 and 2, 1 and 3, you go, right, we want to aim for at least that and try and better it. So I don't think we're going to get 4 out of 4 working, and
so if we need 8
maybe
players,
look at it and go, can we afford to write off money? You would look at the bank account and say, yes, we can. Because what is it, 70 million in a bank?
But Lawrence, you're scaring me. You're scaring me. I think we need 8 players. You're telling me we need to sign 24 to get the 8.
No, listen, potentially to get it. Bringing in 8 that were guaranteed to be first team starters. Who would remain then? Who would the 3 that would be remaining? What are you going to do with the players that surplus the requirement? And you were talking about changing the dressing room. What's that going to do to a team? You get 8 new guys in. Because remember, under Ange, a lot of people were unhappy. It's probably the biggest change to the first team I've seen. A lot of people were unhappy with the results at the beginning. This isn't working. Too many guys in. Or they need to get to know each other. And it ended up working for us. But we need to get through that pain again and hope it works. If we're bringing in 8 first teamers, I don't know who you've got. Who would the 3 be that would hold their place? Carter Vickers, McGregor?
No, the 8 players that I'm bringing in is for your group of, let's say, 14, 15, because you're replacing Joe Hart, so he's gone.
Definitely. I wouldn't spend any more money until you've got your keeper sorted.
You're either buying Bernardo or signing somebody to replace him in the squad because he is part of that 14 or 15. You're doing the same with Ida. So there's 3. You then look at the defence. Scales, he's already been raised. He was raised yesterday, he was raised today. We need someone with more quality to partner Carter Vickers. So there's a centre half. And I would go further than that and say we actually need the left back situation sorted as well. And I don't want to go out and try and buy a backup. We've already done that with Bernabe and it didn't work out. He'll need to be offloaded. We need to buy what we've got better than what we've got. So there's 5 straight away. You go then into Matt O'Reilly territory. If he leaves, and it looks like he might, you've got to replace him as well. So there's number 6. You're looking at the wings. Have we replaced Abada? Well, we brought in Kuhn, who's playing. Who's his backup? James Forrest. Next season, he's a year older. Do we need another right winger? I would suggest that we do. And then on the left-hand side, we've got Maeda. Big question marks around Palmer and also Yang. So we need a left winger. And then there's your 8 players. So it's not a case of saying only 3 are good enough. Some of those guys that you're bringing in, you would say are at the level at the moment of a Bernardo or a Needle, where they really are contributing to the first team, but they're not guaranteed starters every week, Lawrence. But I think that is the level of the overhaul that we require this pre-season.
So I don't know how much Bernardo's contributing. He's started to look better the last few games, but how much he's contributing, I'm not too sure. £6 million worth. When I thought so. Last time we spent that kind of money was Carter Vickers and Jota. And they had brilliant seasons on loan to get us to spend that money.
Your 6 million, your 6 million today is not your 6 million 2 years ago.
No, definitely not. But I just can't see us spending that on Bernardo. You need to look out.
Why do you think
that else is in the market?
Is that because you think the club are reluctant to do it, Lawrence?
Oh yeah, listen, there's no doubt that the club are very cautious in the way they spend money. You know, and a big transfer, it tends to be somebody that's come in on loan and done well.
Has he? There's a question.
Yeah.
Has he done well enough?
I think he's done 6 million well. You know, I think they might look at it, it's 3 million. They look at it. I said that there's no argument either scores goals.
3 million. This is no disrespect, because 3 million is a lot of money to me. 3 million is nothing to Celtic, and it's nothing in modern football. Neither is 4. I mean, we spent the best part of £4 million on Burnaby.
Oh, right? Totally. Yeah, and they might be looking and go, well, that's money wasted. We need to try and get some money back on that. And it goes back to how many of our transfers are working out. How many £4 million players do we need to buy to get a first teamer? Because we know the million and 2 millions, it ain't cutting it. You know, we've got loads at that. And how many have turned into first teamers? Or maybe they'll look and go, well, we got Hatate fairly cheap, but perhaps that was a wee bit to do with the market. Who knows? So, for me, I think spending more money on the players should give you more surety that they're going to be a success.
Better quality. See the thing, Lawrence, there, you mentioned that area of the market, right? And we're not going to spend the entire hour talking about transfers, by the way. We're going to bring up your comments and run with that. But that area of the market, you know, if you look at someone like Maeda, Matt O'Reilly, Rio Hatate, these guys, I think, were an anomaly to the rule, in that you had a guy in charge with the Japanese players that I've mentioned, in Ange Postecoglou, who knew that market intimately. And it was a market that at that point Celtic hadn't been tapping into since Kokai Mizuno and Shansuke Nakamura. So there's an element of luck, but there's an element of you had a specialist within that market at your football club now, and he was able to say, I mean, anyone that you bring in from a different market, Lawrence, will know the best 20 players in that league. And he's saying, well, I'll have him, and, you know, it's not going to cost you much. The O'Reilly one's a wee bit different, I think. I think that really is lucky. That's not going to come around very often, if at all.
Tosh and team's obviously done a good job there, finding him. But
did they find him? Was he presented to us?
Oh, I'm pretty sure they've still scouted him. Even if someone says there's a player, I'm pretty sure Celtic would have done the due diligence.
Remember, it was all last minute. Remember, Riley McGree was the man.
Yeah, apparently Ange wanted Riley McGree, and he said no, and then the team's come up with Matt. But you're talking about picking the best players for the leagues. I think Blaga Bielka was the best player in his league, wasn't he? He got player of the year.
Defender.
He's not had a lot of minutes for us, but he's not looked great when he's played.
Has he not though? See, this is the thing. Is that a personal thing? Is it because you look at his performances? I mean, certainly there wasn't a performance where he was rank rotten. You know, I can't point to a performance and say to you, Lawrence, I didn't want to see him again in a Celtic jersey. I mean, Yang in the last couple of weeks, I think, has had that type of performance. He was really poor against Rangers, poor against Aberdeen.
Rockavata would have done, given the same minutes. And you're going, is that just money down the drain and blocking a player coming through? Listen, we've got about 70 million in the bank and a fair chunk of cash still to come. But will the board change their strategy?
This is the big question.
But, you know, obviously Brendan's been, I think since he came in, he's been linked with Kevin Kelleher. I don't know how much it costs now, but it'd be a big statement if we went out and got someone like him. Well, and he's not a hugely experienced keeper.
No.
You know, what's he had, 20, 30 games for Liverpool tops? You know, not hugely experienced. But if you go and pay the money for him, I would say that Brendan's now getting more of a say on the type of player that's coming in, the level of player that's coming in. But listen, there'll be a budget somewhere at the top, and I can't see us bringing 8 in without moving people out.
Oh,
Brendan already spoke about
that's going to happen.
People out. So the team need to do their work and getting rid of some of the players. Hopefully, Bernabei is success where he goes and someone looks to buy him. But we need to move it on. They're all draining the wage bill. The thing is, if you bring in another 8 and say 5 of them, there's another 3 that's draining the wage bill. What are you going to do in the next transfer window? So I think we need to get a bit smart about how we spend our money. It seems a wee bit, the $1 million, $2 million market, they're happy to buy 5 or 6 players a year in that. And you're like, they're just bloating the squad and stopping young players from coming through.
That is not the answer. Definitely not. But on the point of Bernabei, he has been an unused sub in the last 2 games over in Brazil. So I'm not sure if that's going to result in a permanent move. What's your thoughts? Let us know in the comment section. What was your thoughts at the weekend? And then for the game coming up against Dundee, we know they had a very good result at home against Rangers last week. But we have done pretty well against them this season. I'm a fan of Tony Docherty. I think he conducts himself really well. And he's done brilliantly with Dundee this season. You know, we were playing a side there at the weekend, Aberdeen, who took us right through to penalties, who are a worse side than this Dundee side, that's for sure. But I know it's cup football and it's different, and we've done well against Dundee. How do you see it going? How would you line up? I'm bringing in Gordon Coney. Welcome to the show, Gordon. Afternoon, lads. We must put the game against Aberdeen and the Scottish Cup on the back burner and focus solely on securing this title. Nothing else matters. Now, I'm going to tie that into something you said, Lawrence, right, about the money. And we're football fans. And, you know, it's not a case of me sitting here going, I want 8 players. I want them all to cost 10 million quid. And I want to empty that bank account. That's not what I'm saying. However, we play our football in Scotland, right? And there isn't a great deal of money kicking around. So you're looking at, you know, in terms of why would a football team need, I said this during the season, why would we need a bundle of money, tens of millions sitting in a bank account, right? Now, I don't know the exact figure, but it's over 60 million, could be closer to 70 million. We've sold Abada. We're going to get secondary payments for Frimpong coming in as well. The chat is we could be selling a prize asset. The chances are it will be Matt O'Reilly because we know the bids came in January. We win this league and we know that there's Champions League money coming in as well. That would put us, Lawrence, I'm going to suggest, and tell me differently if I'm wrong, in the rudest financial health Celtic have ever been in the history of the football club. And why don't we change the strategy then?
Well, see if you've got 100, I think you'd roughly have 100 million to spend. If all that comes to fruition, you've got 100 million to spend in the first team. You're not telling me that we couldn't invest that wisely. You know, you look at players like, I think a 6 million, buy another player and it's going to give you 3 or 4 solid years of being one of the best players in your team.
Yeah.
You know, we don't, not everybody we need to buy needs to be bought with an eye to turning a profit on them. You know, there could be some out of contract players there. Invest, give them a big sign-on fee, keep your wage structure. I mean, look at experience from out the door when Moy went. They used him in a few games. I thought we were naive at times at the weekend. You know, look at Palmer. What's it? It's the only place the boy can cut the ball out. Play it over the boy's head. If you're going to try and play that ball, don't play it along the ground. It's the only place he can cut it out. You know, it's naive. He's a young player. He needs to learn. So there's got to be better ways that we could spend our money. If you've got over 100 million, surely we can get 5 first-team starters from that. You know, of real quality. And take
this, Lawrence.
And guess what? Maybe win a game in Europe that means something.
You know, I said 8. That is the absolute utopia. I'm not expecting 8. I mean, I'm a realist. You've said 5 there. If we bring in 5 players of the ilk that we're talking about, and if you want to use Brendan's language, the quality that he's been talking about, if we bring in 5, will we bring it in one window or will we span it across the 2 windows? Well, who knows? I would like to see us being ambitious enough to go out and get those 5.
Yeah, do 5 in one window. Let them settle in. You get to December, January, and you see what the team is and say, right, have those players made any of the other players we thought we were going to replace better? You know, players get better by playing with better players. Mm-hmm. If they have to, we really need to replace them. See how Danny Kelly's doing. How many more minutes has he got? Is he going to make it with us? Or have we got him out on loan by that stage? You don't know, but there's no reason why Celtic can go out and spend, like, we're going to spend 40 million on this transfer window. Let's up it from the 25 kind of usual limit. We'll push it up to 40. Give Brendan his say on the quality. You know, Tosh and team will do their scouting as normal, but you're changing their remit now.
How many are in that team, by the way? I genuinely don't know.
I don't know who the replacements are for the two that left, so I'm not sure, mate. But you're giving them a different task there to do then. You know, Quan at $1 million, he's probably worth $1 million. They've done right there. You know, we may go on to sell him for 1.5. Who knows? But guess what? He probably won't have contributed anything to Celtic.
You know what I think about Quan, right? Because he's a player you mentioned quite a lot, Lawrence. I think he's the type of guy that sometimes you bring a player in and what you want to do is you want to help them settle in. Now, listen, people might think £1 million is a lot of money to do that. But for Celtic to sign a player for $1 million, to have a player's registration for £1 million is nothing. In this day and age, right? Therefore, if you're bringing in Quan and you think to yourself, he might assist the transition of another player into this football club, you might think it's worthwhile. And what's the worst that can happen? Or, you know what, he might not play, but he was only £1 million. And I think that's the way that the club looked at the Quan signing. Obviously, he's been playing well with St Mirren. I don't like writing anybody off, but I never seen enough in a Celtic jersey to suggest that he could get a game for us. But, you know, that type of player is not the answer.
Not over Kalmark. You know, who's he competing against? I take it, you know, the team will go through and say, right, we need 2 players for every position. You know, who's the top 6 players that we've got? We're not going to look at replacing their positions initially, right? Let's look at the positions below that. Quan was a weird one for me, mate. You know, I think he was just a blocker on players coming through. He's out to St Mirren, he's doing well. Hopefully continues to develop. We might turn a profit on him. Just look at Haksabanovic, mate. You know, you're thinking, not too sure who signed him, but he was brought in. Didn't seem to fit the system that we had. We had a fairly well-defined system. And I think he was brought in just simply because we thought we could turn a profit. Yeah,
because he was actually under £2 million. And he was coming from Rubin Kazan, and we know what the situation was with regards to players' registrations. I think we took a punt on him. Henrik McLarsson says we are a take-a-punt club. I think we did on Haksabanovic. And I think in terms of his technical ability, Haksabanovic's a very good footballer. He's the type of guy that at 15 years of age was playing first-team football in Sweden. You know, he's a gifted player, Lawrence, but I think you've seen under Ange Postecoglou what he could do, but not on a consistent basis. And when you want to progress as a football club, and in particular do better in Europe, and we do talk about it quite a lot, it needs to be week in, week out. It's not about a flash in the pan. It's not about doing something fancy every game if you're going to lose a goal like Palma did against Aberdeen. I'm going to come back to Palma, though, because some have suggested I'm giving him too much of a hard time in the comments, and that's fair enough. And I just want to tell you my position on him as a player. I'm actually disappointed at his drop-off, Lawrence. I think that when you look at Palma's season, he was on an upward trajectory. He was scoring goals in the Champions League. His goals and assists record was excellent, you know, when you look at the minutes that he was playing. And there was always elements of his game that he had to improve. Defensively, I think his discipline's pretty poor as well. And we got all that work rate, you know, that kind of thing. He really had to work on that. And instead of those aspects being added to his canon, if you like, I think he's taken a dip. And I actually think at the moment, if you were to ask a lot of Celtic fans, would you keep him? A lot of people are saying no. And it's almost like the recency bias, Lawrence. He's done a lot of good stuff coming up to this point, but he's kind of dropped off a cliff recently, hasn't he?
Yeah, definitely dropped off a cliff, and high-profile mistakes don't help, do they? But Palma, he's not a starter. That's the problem. You know, Kyogo's struggling because we don't have wingers good enough to supply him. Mm-hmm. You're looking at it going, right, who's really... Kuhn's look as if the recruitment team's done a good job on him. He looks as if he's starting to play. He looks as if he could be a first-team player. Maeda, brilliant. But where's the competition? You touched on it, Jamesy Forrest, how, you know, turned the game for us, but how many seasons has he got left in him? You know, he's going to be another year older. We need better quality wingers coming in. We need to supply the ammunition to the forwards. You know, God knows what Kyogo's thinking up top. It looked as if he was getting back to it, but it dropped off again at the weekend. I didn't think he had a good game. So arguably we could do even if we keep either, we could do with 3 strikers competing. It looks like Brendan doesn't like Cole, so we'd probably need to move him before we could bring somebody in.
He definitely doesn't like him, does he? He doesn't fancy him. He's barely played.
You have a squad, is he?
No.
So
I put a question out yesterday, Lawrence, right? It'd be interesting to know your thoughts and those thoughts of the commenters, those that are tuning in. And the question was Miovski. It actually came from James McKenzie. Remember wee James?
Aye.
You remember James? Aye. So he's working on a blog, and he spoke about, you've got Ida, you've got Miovski. Now, you know the rumours about what X, Y, and Z would cost, etc. But the dilemma or the debate was around if both of them are available for roughly the same price, roughly the same outlay, who do you go for? Now, Miovski is going to be on a lot less wage, I would suggest, than somebody like Ida coming in from the Championship, having played for Norwich for a number of seasons. But if it was like for like in terms of the financials, Lawrence, the question was, who would you bring in? And there's always pros and cons. You've got the fact that Ida's maybe settled in after 6 months. He's shown what he can do in a Celtic jersey. Some people were saying Miovski could end up like another Nadir Chifche. I thought that was harsh. Who would you pick? But a lot of people said, you know what? Why are we talking about one or the other? Why don't we buy them both and move on? What's your thoughts on that?
Well, I think we only got Ida because we went in with too low a bid for Miovski. The last transfer window, I think Brendan wanted him, and the club. It's not. See, that's a frustrating thing. It's not for lack of money. Our valuation didn't meet Aberdeen's valuation. We needed a striker to help us secure potential double, and we decided we're not going to push it out and pay that wee bit more. Not because we didn't have the money, because definitely had the money. So I think we're too tight at times buying players. But there's no reason why we couldn't get both in. If Brendan wants them both in, it's move all out. If you can't sell low, put them on loan somewhere, get him some experience. But it doesn't look like Brendan's going to play him.
No, it doesn't.
Maybe we should actually be looking for somebody better than Kyogo, in my opinion. You want superstar striker in, goalkeeper first, striker next, and then probably wingers for me. The centre half.
To be honest with you, Lawrence, I'm astonished that you think that Kyogo's not the star striker, but we'll come back to that.
No,
I still have hope. I still have hope.
A better striker than Kyogo, if we could.
Well, the thing with Kyogo is
first team then.
The thing with Kyogo, for me, is he's now at that point of his career, Lawrence, at 29, where Celtic started getting a little bit twitchy, because Celtic, as you said at the top of the show, want to make a profit on everybody that they bring in, and sometimes I think that can hold us back. I would rather next season bring in a sprinkling of experience, Lawrence, because we have lost Boy, and we're going to lose Joe Hart, and some of the experience that we lost from the team this season after Ange came in that we forget about. We lost Nir Beaton and we lost Tommy Rogic. These two guys had 8 or 9 years service each at Celtic. A lot of experience and a lot of international experience. We lost these guys. And the players have been replaced, but the experience hasn't. So I think that's something we need to look towards. And you've now got Kyogo as a senior pro in the team. Lawrence, I wouldn't have an issue if we brought in someone who was potentially better than Kyogo, and I think Kyogo could work with him. I think Kyogo could be an option on the wing as well. I would love to keep him, is what I'm saying here. I don't think he's quite ready to leave the club.
It's a worry. The board will be thinking about cashing in on him.
Because of his age.
Yeah. He's one of the few that you'd say, yeah, he should be starting every game on the squad that we've got just now.
Yeah.
So we don't want to be selling our better players just now when we've got such a rebuild to do. And actually, I know there's chat about O'Reilly going, but I think he's still got a few years left in his contract. Do we really need to sell him just now when we've still got a rebuild?
We don't need to. You don't need to, Lawrence, but
it's not money.
What do you think the chances are of us keeping Matt O'Reilly?
I think that the board would jump at the money. Anyone puts 25 million down, they would jump at it. It doesn't matter. We're potentially going to already have 100 million in the bank, but they would jump at it. And it's crazy. So who are you going to bring in? Bernardo's not really worked out. Well, who are you bringing in that position? Are they going to settle? Might need to sign 2 players for that position to find one that works as well as O'Reilly. So, you know, you might get 20 and spend 10 trying to replace him. 5, it's getting written off, and you've got a problem on the bench because he's not getting played. So, for me, I would try and keep O'Reilly. We've got the money. You know, they can't argue that we need to sell players.
No, we don't. Absolutely not. We don't need to, but I think they will.
Oh, okay. Without that, you know the way the board operate. I mean, if you ask Brendan, I'm pretty sure he'd want to keep him. I think he's still got a good bit of development to go. He's not like, like when Tierney left, he's nowhere producing those kind of levels of performance week in, week out that Kieran produced or that Musa produced. So you're thinking he's still got a good bit to develop in his game that he could do here. Whether the board will be willing to maybe up his contract and say, well, look, we'll put a buyout clause in you, but stay another year. We'll up your wages.
I think Brendan Rodgers will be thinking along those lines, Lawrence, no doubt about it. But the board, as you say, will look at him and say, well, a player that we brought in for £1.5 million. They honestly, they would be twitching at 15 million, never mind 20 or 25, because a 1,000% profit. That's what they're looking at. And then they can say, look, what we did in terms of our recruitment strategy, it works. We're really good at buying and selling players. So, you know, I am concerned about it. I do want to focus a wee bit more on the types of players who are going to get us through the next 6 games. But before we do that, let's talk about some of the comments coming through. One wee point on Bernardo, though, Lawrence, you seem to have written him off a wee bit. Would that be safe in saying that?
No, he's not been consistent enough that he's spending $6 million on him. Last few games, he's starting to look a bit better. Would they be rushing out to spend $6 million? I think it'd be having a look elsewhere and seeing what's available for $6 million. It's a frustrating thing, you know. When we go to $6 million, we won't very rarely spend it up front. You know, we've got to have them in on loan, have a wee look at them. You know, like sometimes you know you've got to take the plunge. It's just ridiculous to be that amount of money in the bank the last transfer window. And I know we get the stories coming from Celtic saying, "Oh, it was difficult to spend it." You know, I think they meant any of it because we turned up a profit in the last transfer window.
Lawrence,
so we turned a profit, and the team was crying out for some improvement. Bought 3, you could have bought 3, you know, 3 first-team starters, 2 first-team starters. Really made a difference. Brilliant. Listen, I'm not saying the recruitment team's done badly on it, the scouts, because say Kuhn's probably he's done well. Eder's definitely contributed. So the 2 players that have come in there are definitely making a difference to the team. But if we change the strategy up to money, maybe we could get a bigger impact, or maybe we could have brought another 2 in on top of him.
Well, there's a couple of things, right? Because the first one is on Bernardo. Had we spent the £6 million in the summer, would you have been happy with the signing at this stage?
Not just now.
No? Let us know in the comments. Let us know in the comments section. Also, what's stopping us, like we did with Paddy Roberts? Go back to his parent club and say, you know what, he's done well. Not quite ready to spend £6 million on him and increase the loan period. Remember, we did it. We got 2 lengthy loan periods out of Paddy Roberts.
Could do that. It's how much money are you throwing away again? What's a loan fee for another season? How much are you throwing away? How much have we already spent for a loan fee? Maybe renegotiate the $6 million. Is it because the player himself, will he want to go back to Benfica? Sit on the bench again? Will Benfica want him sitting about doing nothing? Are there other clubs interested in him? I'm sure Celtic will know all this, but if there's no one else willing to pay $6 million, maybe no one even willing to pay $4 million, why would it be paid $6 million? You know, because just now he's a problem for Benfica. So I get that he's an asset for them, but he's a problem. He doesn't play for them. They don't rate him as good enough. So he's one of the players that they might say, if he comes back and no one takes him, he's a drain in the wage bill. So you need to give them an out of that, don't you? And say, well, look, we're taking $3 million. Or whatever the figure is.
I'm going to say, though, you know, your loan fee, this is sometimes something that people don't recognise as a transfer fee. So you look at some of the loan fees that we've paid out in the past. Shane Duffy cost us £2 million. Charlie Musonda, remember him? He cost us $2 million.
Timo Weah left one game. I think was it Champions League?
Yeah, it was Callum McGregor. Yeah.
Yes.
Callum McGregor's goal.
That's the only figure I remember him doing.
I mean, we spent £6 million on Charlie Musonda, Shane Duffy, and Timo Weah. The guys weren't even our players. I don't think, and by the way, the figure I've seen is 1.5 for Bernardo in terms of the loan fee. I don't think that's been wasted. I think he's been an integral part of the team throughout the season. Even as a bench warmer, he's come on, he's contributed, he scored important goals. I think he did come into a game the last couple of games as well, like you said. If we've spent 1.5 to 2 million on him, I think, for a young guy who's the captain of the Portuguese under-21 team,
great pedigree,
decent business.
But look at that. If he's contributing, as you say, to say 1.5 to 2 million worth this season, well, if it's just spent the 6 million on him and had him on a 4-year contract, it would only be 1.5. It wouldn't have been anywhere near 2 million, and you'd have had an asset. If you have to say, well, if it performs like that, the length of his contract, it's worth it. I mean, the loan fees they're fairly high, aren't they? You don't own the asset. It's basically what's on the park.
Nat Phillips. We paid over £1 million for Nat Phillips.
Money thrown away.
Yeah.
That was a strange one, bringing him in when he was injured. And I think we talked about it 2 weeks before he came in. We need to look at him as a centre-half, or we need to get experienced centre-half in now because we're going to be short. And then we bring in a guy who's injured because we've got an injury crisis at centre-half.
And they couldn't get a game. It was a strange one. And I think he left without any fanfare. I don't even think the Celtic Twitter announced that he was away back to Liverpool. JJI, here you come. The wage structure needs changed, says you. An extra 10 to 15k reserved for star players like O'Reilly would be enough to keep them for an extra season or two. The thing with this is, as soon as you mention wage structure, a lot of people will say, well, we're never going to change the wage structure. It can be done, and it can be done by streamlining the squad. Lawrence, we don't need 33 first-team players. I keep having a crack at the fact that and Kobayashi and McCarthy and Siegrist are nowhere to be seen. Where are they? What do they get up to on a day-to-day basis? These guys are pulling probably the guts of 60 grand a week out the football club. So there's one thing saying, we can't change the wage structure. And I'm thinking, well, yeah, we can. We can by saving money like that, non-contributing players. And it doesn't come down to, for me, it doesn't come down to saying, every transfer can't work. We need to make sure that we are absolutely the best in class to make sure that more often than not, they do work. So it's easy to say, we couldn't spend money in January. I think that's a cop-out. I think if we've got a big enough net and we're looking at enough markets, we would find the players that we require, Lawrence. I felt that was really lazy to come away with that. Not by you, by the club in January.
Well, totally. If the club had set up, then we'll give you 5 million for Yoski. I'm pretty sure it'd been a Celtic player. We'd have dropped less points in the league. Probably wouldn't have went extra time in the semi. It's about the willingness of the club, how much they want to spend. And listen, we can definitely change the wage structure. Or you can do it different ways. You can give them a larger, if you want to keep the wage structure, give them a larger signing on fee. It's about how much money they end up with in their pocket. So I don't think a lot would care would be a signing on fee or bonuses for performance throughout the 4 years here. You might want to tie it and say, look, if we win the league and you've played in 50% of the games, you'll get X amount of money. But if you're sitting on the bench not doing anything, you don't have any chance of getting that money. So if you're coming here, you need to be contributing. So there's loads of ways to change it. But the board just absolutely seem unwilling to do it. I mean, we're not the highest paid squad in Scotland. I think we're far from it. And it's, whether the other club can actually afford to pay those wages, who knows, but they definitely pay them. And again, we've got to be cautious. You don't want to get out of business, but with 100 million in the bank, maybe erring a wee bit too much on the side of caution.
Absolutely.
There needs to be a middle ground there. And I think everyone, Brendan said it since he came in, we need more quality. We'll get us more quality, costs money, and you need to pay for it.
Mm-hmm.
And imagine we get to the end of this season, we've done the double. And Brendan says, he's unwilling to get the quality, I'm going to walk away now. And says it publicly. Where does it leave the boards, with their tens, if not 100 million in the bank? Say, we want to give you another 4 players and we'll spend 10 million all in. And if we sell O'Reilly, we'll up that to 20. It's just ridiculous, mate. I mean, the rumoured money from Frimpong, it's crazy just now. So you're hoping that the changes in recruitment are because Brendan's going to get his way. You know.
Well, I think there's been a change in mood around Brendan Rodgers since the departure has been announced of Matt Lowell. I think that there's been discussions that he will know exactly what's happening in the summer. Nothing's going to be happening as a surprise to him. But in terms of that, that ambition, some of the guys I mentioned there, we've dodged a bullet with some of them. Charlie Musonda, Shane Duffy. If we'd gone out and spent big money on these guys, it wouldn't have worked. So I know that it's not an exact science, but if you're shopping in that type of market, that type of quality, then it can work. I mean, famously last week, Lee Congdon was talking about a couple of guys he wanted to sign when he was at Celtic. Moussa Diaby, who I think proved himself. But again, the other thing I would say to that, how many guys were you part of signing that didn't work out, Congdon? It's always the way, Lawrence, people tell you about the ones that they wish they had got, but they never tell you about, the betting slips that didn't come up.
Yeah, that could be his 2 winners out of 40, who knows?
Yeah.
I think we've touched on it. We need to spend some money and get some experience in. Maybe a couple of experienced heads that we're not looking to turn a profit on. Because I think Moy's been a huge mistake this season. I thought, last season, the times he would just come on and close games out, or he just knew how to play football, how to manage a game. And you saw the weekend, we had a team there that didn't manage that game well. And I don't think it's because Brendan's not told them how to do it. I think at times they're not been following his instructions. Yeah. They're a bit young and thinking, I know better. If I thread this ball through, we could go in and it'd be 4-2. There's minutes to play, just see the game out.
No, you're right. You're right. And again, it was a carbon copy almost of what happened at Ibrox. We're up, we're ahead, we go ahead again, see the game out. Didn't happen. Kevin Graham was very critical with the team yesterday in relation to that. But you're right in what you say there with Brendan. Brendan's given the instructions out. We need a player like Palmer to be able to make that cross-field pass and ensure that we're defending from the front. It's everybody's job. The guy that I focused on against Rangers was Yang. I thought his defensive display was absolutely atrocious. All he had to do is close the channel, close the lane. Matondo, it all opens up. It was like the Great Sea opening up, and there it is. I think in terms of your wingers, you've got to be able to defend. I think Jota got that pretty early in his Celtic career. I think Maeda naturally does it. I think Jamesy Forrest does it. Kuhn, I think he's working on it. He's certainly not standing out as being a poor defending winger, but Palmer and Yang, I think that's aspects of their game that really need to be worked on if they want to be part of Brendan Rodgers' side. Now, Plunge McNugget tells us, 10 million quid for Abada and another 10 for Frimpong when his move finally comes in. Now, I'm bringing this up from Ian Roy because you touched on this, Lawrence, this overcautious nature of the Celtic board. I think the roots of that is in what happened to Rangers. It's always a case of, right, no, we manage your business. We can't do that because you look what happened to Rangers. I think the roots of it's in that. I also think that we had a situation after Seville where we had spent so much money, not just in transfer fees, but also in wages, and it got us to the UEFA Cup final. So they look at that and say, but you know what? See, in Scottish football terms, you can't survive paying that kind of wages to that amount of footballers just to get to the UEFA Cup final.
Well, we had to have another share issue, so we probably couldn't afford it then. Let's be honest, if you have another share issue to pay the bills, we couldn't afford it. I don't know what the answer is. Have a pre-share issue. Say to the fans, listen, we'll match you if you subscribe for £5 million worth of shares. You've got 100 million in. It reduces your risk. Rather than spending 25 million, we'll put it up to 35 million.
I don't think the fans would buy that.
Mate, they've got to spend the money. Peter Law come out and says it's no good in the bank.
We're not a bank.
Why is it there? And that's we couldn't spend it. You're like, come on, behave.
What do you need for a rainy day? What do you need in the bank for a rainy day? You don't need 70 million plus everything else that's coming in. You don't need that for a rainy day, right? And by the way, he might not get the credit from everybody, but see if Brendan Rodgers wins this league and he accesses that bounty, the lucrative nature of next season's Champions League, under the circumstances that we have been speaking about all season, Lawrence, right? It's not an opportunity for this board to say, look, we know best. We can do this on a shoestring, because you absolutely cannot. That would be really complacent. I don't think Rodgers would accept it.
We've one ever present, Joe Hart, all season, due to injuries and sometimes just lack of quality. The players need to be changed out. And we're going to lose him. So we won't have anyone next season that's managed to get a full season. It's crying out for quality. Brendan Sennison has walked back in. So he's obviously been saying it behind closed doors for 12 months now.
Yeah.
It's firmly with the board. We reckon we could have about 100 million in the bank. Would it really hurt them to spend 40 in the first team? But listen, while we're at it, the ladies look like they're going to win the league. Why are they the third or fourth best financed ladies team in Scotland? They look as if they're going to win the league. Spend a wee bit on them as well.
So they beat Hearts 5-0, didn't they, at the weekend?
Yeah.
We've not had an opportunity. We were obviously at one of the press conferences when the new gaffer came in, replacing Fran Alonso, who was a bit of for me, he was just a character. He was a personality. He was charismatic. And we've done an interview, a standalone interview that's on the channel. Go and check it out. Eleanor Sadiku has come in. Tricky wee start, I think, but she's got the team playing really, really well. 5-0 against Hearts. Goals scored by Murphy Agnew, Lucy Ashworth Clifford, and Tash Flint, whose name always seems to be in amongst the goals. The interesting thing for me about that was brilliant result, absolutely. Done on a shoestring, Lawrence, absolutely done on a shoestring.
Listen, hats off to Tash Flint, because when she was up here the first time, I think Rangers were after and she refused to go. Went back down to Leicester, wasn't it? And now we've got it back. So that's the goodwill of the players doing that the club means something to them. Yes. Tash Flint retained a bigger money from Rangers. She was going back to Leicester. Celtic at the time didn't want to pay whatever was asked of us. But great to get her back, and great that she's scoring the goals, but a bit of luck that she's still on the green white hoops.
Yeah, but my only disappointment, and I'm not trying to be negative here, is that was one of the games, wasn't it, that was played at Celtic Park, and it was one of the games that the Green Brigade and North Curve boys wanted to basically make a spectacle. The Celtic end. We've seen it last season. They wanted to do it again, and the club knocked them back. That was the only part of that I thought, had the Green Brigade been there, right, and made a spectacle of it, then in terms of the coverage and the exposure of the women's game, it would have been all over the socials. It kind of happened with a whimper. Everybody's focusing, let's be honest, on the Scottish Cup at the weekend, and the Green Brigade would have put a huge amount of focus on that game, and it didn't happen. And I felt that was pretty disappointing once.
Yeah, well, listen, if there's been a feature this season, it's the kind of regular fallouts between fan groups and the board. Brendan said it before, everything needs to work together. Can't continue to be fought. The club can't continue to fall out with the Green Brigade. There's got to be, common ground between them where they can kind of achieve the goal. But it seems further away than ever now. But I don't know what the answer is. They don't want pyros. Well, apparently you can get cold pyros. Work together. There's got to be displays there that can be done safely. And the board make enough money out of the displays. You're going
Look
to
at the display at the weekend, Lawrence.
Exactly.
Look at Hampden Park. Unbelievable. Global audience. Who was responsible for that? Who raised the money to do it? Who planned it out? Who entered Hampden Park and set it all out, taking hours and hours and hours out of their own time? The Green Brigade, the Ultra Movement, the boys. These guys did it. These guys and girls did it.
But listen, the board are happy to sell pictures of these displays in the Celtic shop. You're kind of going, there needs to be a better way. You can't go on continually fighting between the board and the fans.
No, you can't. You can't. And by the way, I'm going to throw out a suggestion here. People going about how to increase the exposure of the women's game. I know there's people in the audience right now watching a Celtic state of mind who might not have an interest in the women's game. I think what they should do, right, you know how you get these Netflix series where it's a kind of fly on the wall or behind the scenes? Get in about it, aye. And Celtic could produce it. Put it out there. There you go, Celtic. You can have that one for free. Double Denim comes in. £6 million is too much for a squad player. I'd expect an immediate impact. First team pick for that outlay. Bernardo, for me, is worth £3 million. Right, hold that thought, because here's a good point here from Bob J, who says or asks, does your loan fee come off the final bill? Because if it did, you're looking at what, 4.5? Does that make it a wee bit more enticing, Lawrence? 4.5 million?
Well, it's 4.5 more enticing than 6. Definitely the Celtic board. But I think to anyone. But it'll just depend on the way the deal's structured. And I think most of the time it doesn't. You know, the actual fee, you're getting them for a season. Mm-hmm. You're not willing to commit long term to him, that's fine. If it's an obligation to buy, you know, when you paid a loan fee with an obligation to buy, yeah, it's likely it's going to be structured that it will come off the final fee. But listen, Bernardo, he's a young player. Brendan likes to develop young players, but he's not. For me, I need to agree with Chris. I don't think he's done the 6 million. You know, he's captain of Portuguese under 21. He's someone that has got all the attributes of someone that could develop into a really good player. The problem is probably a bigger strategy. See, you know, if he gets a season as a good player, we just look to sell him. You know, we'll develop you for 2 or 3 years, have a good year with us, then we'll sell you. I think it's the longevity we get out of players.
I'm okay with that. I'm all right with that, as long as we spend some of the money. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's what we spend the money on. Another guy will develop 2 or 3 years, and then as soon as there's a good season, sell him. You know, why can he not have 2 good seasons here?
Now and again, it's down to the timing, Lawrence. Now and again, it's down to the timing. I mean, I remember doing a show with Colin Watt on here a while back. I don't think it was 8 in a row. I think we'd done 7 in a row, and we basically had a look back at the players that we had in that 7-year period and what they could have done had they all played together. Now, we weren't talking about the greatest ever team and it was, you know, unrealistic because guys wouldn't be able to play. This was a clutch of guys that had they all stuck together, we would have had a really frightening team that could have done something potentially in Europe. So I agree with you. There comes a point, Lawrence, where probably from the manager, there needs to be a real pressure put on the board. I don't want this player to leave yet. Unfortunately for us, this isn't the team that you're thinking to yourself, Matt stays. We're, you know, when we add 2 or 3, this could really work because we're quite a bit short, I think, from having a right good side at the moment. But there has been occasions where if a player was about to leave and you were able to keep them, let's not forget what led to Brendan Rodgers leaving first time round. You know, there was a few different reasons around it, but a lot of it was down to players coming, players going, and basically him not getting the quality that he wanted. I'm really keen to bring in quite a few of these comments before we go, because Lawrence and I, as we would do, even if we were only on this, like a wee bit of an atom, a disagreement about Celtic. Danny Boy, don't think any of our players would get a regular game in the EPL. I'm going to give you 2 that I disagree with you, Danny. I'm going to give you 2. I think Matt O'Reilly has it in him, and I still do think he's got development, that he would get a regular game in the EPL. And I also think that Rio Atati would get a regular game. And you know what? I think Carter Vickers would as well. Maybe not with Spurs, but I think Carter Vickers could play at that level as well.
Calman too, mate.
At this stage of his career, do you think?
Oh, definitely. I think Calman get. There's some utter dross in the EPL, mate. You forget.
No,
look at some of the long players we've had from him.
By the way, absolutely. What do you think in the comments section? Which players from Celtic's current squad would play regularly in the EPL? We're not talking top half. I think quite a few of them, actually, if you're just talking in the league. Because I agree with you, once we bring players up. We look at one of the guys at Rangers have got the new Silva. Wouldn't take him in a lucky bag. Henrik McLarsson. How much is McCarthy on? The last time we checked, was it 16,000 quid a week?
I think so. Yeah, he's kind of 4 instead of a 3, and we got him on a free. So I didn't pay any money for him, which was a good thing. I don't know if he had a signing on. But
you can't be paying him 16 grand to run the card school, Lawrence.
No, definitely not. It's not a good investment, but he looked okay until that injury against Dundee United.
That was about 7 years ago, mate.
Well, other players come in and take his place. It's trying to move him on. What do you do? I saw Darren in the day has been promoted to the pathway manager. You know, if a player's coming up, well, we have another guy at the club whose job it is to move players on. That are, you know, like Bernabe, who's not working out. We've got him alone now to put it up, but there must be a guy whose job it is to say, right, these players, you need to go out and be on the phone to clubs and your contacts saying, look, we've got a guy here, he's not worked at us, but here's his attributes. Try and move them out, try and free up the wages, bring in a bit of money for them if possible. Look, we moved Turnbull out, you know, we got some money for him. I think we've done all right. It's just the most disappointing thing about the transfer window was we turned a profit. You know, we'd almost 70 million in the bank.
I know.
Yeah, but yet again, I know we're after the boy from Man City, and not every player you're after will end up coming. But there's no way we couldn't have bought Miovski. We definitely had enough money to buy him. That was a choice not to buy. The manager wanted him. Gets handed over
The club haven't done the business.
Gets handed over the money meant to agree the fee, and he doesn't come. Listen, we ended up with Ida, and Ida's done really well for us. So, you know, it might turn out to be a blessing in disguise. You know, maybe we sign Ida and he goes on to have 5-6 great years with us.
I like him. I like Ida. I do. But the thing with Miovski, I don't know. I just get vibes of the Stephen Fletcher and John McGinn deals where were difficult to deal with other Scottish football clubs. It would appear. I mean, let's be honest. Aberdeen could have been given £6 million at the beginning of the season, and it probably wouldn't have made any difference because they have been a nosebleed of a football club this season. They've been absolutely shocking. Experience like CCV and Moy, says Mamansis, is a must next season. I agree with that. And Paul, 3 is optimistic, you reckon? I'll tell you something. See if we bring 3 in, if they're of the right quality, I'm happy with that, right? And then we still need to do business in January. But as long as it's the right quality, I don't want to buy just for the sake of buying. I don't want the scattergun approach. Let's sign half a dozen. Hopefully one of them is okay. If it's 3 and it's 3 players of the ilk of a Jota or a Carter Vickers, of that level of quality, Paul, I'll go for it all day long. And we might be able to get a few more loans in and start that conveyor belt again, bring in a couple of younger guys, have a look at them for a season and see next season if they're going to be up for it. Lawrence, before you go, because you won't be back on the show before the weekend, give me a prediction for Dundee.
I think Tony McLaughlin's fairly open team. I think 3-1 Celtic. I think we'll score 3 again.
We need to.
Listen, we're scoring goals just now. It's the keeping them out that's the problem. Mohamed Scales, I think he's the most improved player at the club. I think he's been absolutely outstanding this season. But I think I'd have Rocky back in. You know, he was questionable for a couple of the goals at the weekend. I think I'd have Rocky back in there. But I think Brendan's fairly loyal to players. He'll probably stick with Scales.
I think he will too. I think he will too. Yeah, and you know this. I think that Scales will be, if fit, and ever present for the next 6 games. And it's about getting the people with the mentality like your Joe Hart that we've spoken about, Callum McGregor, Jamesy Forrest, not as a starter. These are the guys that will see us through.
Mentality and attitude. Liam Scales has got that in abundance.
It does.
You know, he's come in really advanced, and he's made the jersey his own. You know, he's done that through sheer hard work. And I think he's the most improved player at the club. And hopefully he can go on improving. I just don't think he's at the quality that we want next to Carter Vickers just now. And I think Rocky would probably be of better quality. But, you know, he's proven a lot to people along this season, Liam Scales, and hopefully he continues to do so.
Yeah, I would echo those sentiments. Thank you, everybody, for getting involved. 1,300 strong, no problems with the Wi-Fi. The Skylark Bar is the place to be. Lawrence will let you know when we're all going to get an invite into there as well. If you're coming along on Thursday night, I'm really looking forward to Martin O'Neill at Barra's Art and Design. And, of course, we've got the Centenary boys, Joe Miller and Peter Grant, who are great storytellers. They tell funny stories and insightful stories, but very passionate Celts as well. We're going to Dunoon for the first time ever. Not just Acsom, me. I've never been. So look forward to that one. Never been to Dunoon, you know.
Look out, Healing Mary, mate. Just watch out.
What's that? Come on,
you
can't just throw that out there. Is that the name of somebody that hangs about the pubs, or who is it? Or
you'll find out what you're doing, mate. I'm sure Big Ewan will tell you.
Ewan will know. Yeah, thanks everybody for getting involved. If you're in the Dunoon area and you want to come along to see the Centenary boys, then it would be a delight to see you coming along. All the links for all that kind of stuff is underneath this video. Thanks for getting involved. And thank you once again, Lawrence Conley, for joining me on A Celtic State of Mind.